One night, a guy was walking home when he saw a drunk man on his hands and knees under a streetlight, searching for something. Being a good Samaritan, he asked, "Hey, buddy, what are you looking for?" The drunk slurred, "I tripped and my Rolex fell off." Feeling bad for him, the man got down and started searching too. After 10 minutes of finding nothing, he asked, "Are you sure you lost it here?" The drunk shook his head and pointed down the street. "Oh no, I tripped way over there." Confused, the man asked, "Then why are we looking here?" The drunk grinned, "Because the light's better here." A husband and wife were celebrating their 50th anniversary. That night, the wife approached her husband wearing the exact same sexy negligee she had worn on their wedding night. She looked at her husband and said, "Honey, do you remember this?" He looked up at her and said, "Yes, dear, I do. You wore that same negligee the night we were married." She said, "That's right. Do you remember what you said to me that night?" He nodded and said, "Yes, dear, I still remember." "Well, what was it?" she asked. He responded, "As I remember, I said, 'Oh, baby, I'm going to suck the life out of those big teats and screw your brains out.'" She giggled and said, "Yes, honey, that's exactly what you said. So, now it's 50 years later, and I'm in the same negligee I wore that night. What do you have to say tonight?" Again, he looked up at her, and he replied, "Mission accomplished." Fred and Mary got married but couldn't afford a honeymoon, so they spent their first night at Fred's parents' house. The next morning, little Johnny, Fred's kid brother, sat down for breakfast. As he grabbed his backpack, he asked, "Mom, are Fred and Mary up yet?" "No," she replied. Johnny smirked. "Do you know what I think?" His mom cut him off. "I don't want to hear what you think. Just go to school." At lunchtime, Johnny came home and asked again, "Are Fred and Mary up yet?" "No." Johnny grinned. "Do you know what I think?" His mom groaned. "Enough, Johnny. Eat your lunch and get back to school." After school, Johnny walked in and asked one more time, "Are Fred and Mary up yet?" His mom sighed. "Fine, Johnny. What do you think?" Johnny shrugged. "Well, last night, Fred came to my room looking for Vaseline, and I think I gave him my airplane glue." Ms. Brooks' tricky Riddles, glancing at the class with a sly smile. "A finger goes in me. You fiddle with me when you're bored. The best man always has me first. What am I?" The room fell silent. The principal, sitting at the back, shifted uncomfortably, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Johnny, as usual, didn't hesitate. With a confident grin, he blurted out, "Wedding ring." A woman didn't come home one night. The next day, she told her husband that she had slept over at a friend's house. The man called his wife's 10 best friends. None of them knew about it. Friendship between men. A man didn't come home one night. The next day, he told his wife that he had slept over at a friend's house. The woman called her husband's 10 best friends. 8 of them confirmed that he had slept over, and the 2 claimed that he was still there. At 92, Mr. Whitmore strolled into the doctor's office with a twinkle in his eye and a bow tie that hadn't seen a wrinkle in decades. "Doc," he beamed, "I just married a 25-year-old beauty, and guess what? We've got a baby on the way." The doctor smiled, nodded thoughtfully, and said, "Let me tell you a little story, Mr. Whitmore. An old friend of mine, about your age, loves to go duck hunting every fall. One morning, he got halfway to the lake and realized he'd forgotten his shotgun shells. But he went anyway. When a duck flew overhead, he pointed his empty shotgun, yelled, 'Bang, bang!' and down came a duck." Mr. Whitmore chuckled. "Somebody else must have been doing the shooting." The doctor leaned in with a knowing grin. "Exactly." Mildred stormed out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel like a queen in crisis. "I just saw myself naked in the mirror," she declared, clutching her robe like it might shield her from emotional damage. "And I look like hell. Bob, give me a nice compliment to lift my spirits." Bob, parked in his usual chair with a crossword and exactly zero intention of getting up, barely looked up. "Your eyesight is perfect." There was a pause. The kind of pause that happens before either a slap or a sigh. Mildred squinted at him. "Was that sarcasm?" He turned a page. "Wasn't trying to be." She huffed. "I carried your children. I ironed your socks. I made you soup when you were sick. And this is the thanks I get?" Bob looked up. "You used canned soup, Mildred. I heated it. And I appreciated it," he replied. "Just like I appreciate that after 42 years, you still think I'm brave enough to lie." She gave him a look sharp enough to butter toast. "So, no compliment?" Bob smiled slyly. "Of course there is." She waited. He finally said, "At least the mirror survived." Tom surprised Helen with a weekend getaway. She wanted charm, romance, maybe a hot tub. He booked a rustic cabin that looked like it survived 3 divorces and a bear attack. They arrived to find a shed pretending to be a house. The welcome mat said, "No refunds." There was a raccoon on the porch wearing Tom's sock like a headband. Inside, it was decorated in an early American yard sale. The fireplace was just a picture of fire taped to a space heater. The bed had 2 couch cushions and a prayer. And the bathroom? Oh, just nature, with attitude. Tom lit a scented candle labeled Midnight Taco and said, "Romance achieved." Helen opened a window to let out the disappointment. That night, they fell asleep to the soothing sounds of dripping faucet, wind through a hole in the roof, and a raccoon dragging away their cooler. At 3 a.m., Tom whispered, "Did you hear that?" Helen said, "Yes, that was the sound of my standards dying." By morning, their romantic weekend included 2 raccoon heists, 1 air mattress deflation, and a shared towel that smelled like commitment issues. They drove home in silence. Tom turned to Helen and said, "Next time, I'll just book a spa." Helen replied, "Next time I'm going alone." A man is on his deathbed, and he asks his wife, "Martha, soon I will be gone forever, and there's something I have to know. In all these 50 years of marriage, have you ever been unfaithful to me?" Martha replied, "Well, Henry, I have to be honest with you. Yes, I've been unfaithful to you 3 times during these 50 years, but always for a good reason." Henry was obviously hurt by his wife's confession, but said, "I never suspected. Can you tell me what you mean by good reasons?" Martha said, "The first time was shortly after we were married, and we were about to lose our little house because we couldn't pay the mortgage. Do you remember that one evening I went to see the banker, and the next day he notified you that the loan would be extended?" Henry recalled the visit to the banker and said, "I can forgive you for that. You saved our home, but what about the second time?" Martha asked, "And do you remember when you were so sick, but we didn't have the money to pay for the heart surgery you needed? Well, I went to see your doctor one night, and if you recall, he did the surgery at no charge." "I recall that," said Henry. "And you did it to save my life, so of course I can forgive you for that. Now tell me about the third time." "All right," Martha said. "Do you remember when you ran for president of your golf club and you needed 73 more votes?" The mother-in-law stopped by the recently married couple's house unexpectedly. She rang the doorbell and stepped inside, where she saw her daughter-in-law standing naked by the door. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm waiting for my husband to come home from work," the daughter-in-law answered. "But you're naked!" the mother-in-law exclaimed. "This is my love dress," the daughter-in-law explained. "Love dress? But you're naked." "My husband loves me to wear this dress. It makes him happy, and it makes me happy. I would appreciate it if you would leave because he will be home from work any minute." The mother-in-law, tired of all this romantic talk, left. On the way home, she thought about the love dress. When she got home, she got undressed, showered, put on her best perfume, and waited by the front door. Finally, her husband got home. He walked in and saw her standing naked by the door. "What are you doing?" he exclaimed. "This is my love dress," she replied. "Needs ironing," he said.